Title: The Incredible Inconsistencies, a superhumanly snarky review of Pixar's The Incredibles. Grab your super suits, dear listener, because it's time to dive into the fabulously flawed world of Pixar's 2004 classic, The Incredibles. In this supersized review, we'll uncover the hilariously illogical aspects of this beloved film that will leave you wondering how it ever managed to save the day. To begin with, let's address the elephant in the room, the superhero relocation program. As a result of public backlash against superheroes, the government has decided to essentially erase their identities and force them into hiding. But is this really the most logical solution? Surely there could have been more effective ways to address collateral damage, like providing superheroes with better training or developing technology to minimize destruction. Instead, the government opts for the witness protection route, leaving us to ponder how the world would fare without its protectors. And while we're on the subject of the superhero relocation program, let's talk about how Mr. Incredible, aka Bob Parr, gets a job at an insurance company. It's hard to imagine a more ill-suited position for someone with super strength and a thirst for heroics. Picture Clark Kent working as a bouncer or Peter Parker as a pest control specialist. The sheer inappropriateness of the career choice is both hilarious and painfully frustrating. Now, let's discuss the villain, Syndrome, a spurned fanboy turned evil genius. Syndrome's motivation for becoming a villain stems from his childhood idol, Mr. Incredible, rejecting his help. While it's understandable that young Buddy Pine would be disappointed, his subsequent transformation into a diabolical mastermind seems like a bit of an overreaction. And let's not forget his catchphrase, "When everyone's super, no one will be." Honestly, if everyone had superpowers, wouldn't that just level the playing field? If anything, it might lead to a more egalitarian society, which doesn't sound all that villainous. Speaking of Syndrome's plans, let's talk about his Operation Kronos. The idea is to unleash a giant, destructive robot, the Omnidroid, on the city and then swoop in to save the day, thereby cementing himself as the ultimate superhero. However, this plan raises a few questions. First, how did he manage to create such an advanced and powerful robot without anyone noticing? And second, why not just cut out the middleman and become a legitimate superhero using his tech skills, rather than orchestrating a convoluted plan to destroy the city he wants to save? Let's not forget about Edna Mode, the eccentric fashion designer responsible for creating the super suits worn by our heroes. Edna insists on incorporating her signature no capes policy, citing several tragic accidents involving caped superheroes. While this is a humorous and memorable aspect of the film, it's also a glaring example of impracticality. After all, if capes have caused so many issues, why not just design them to be detachable or have breakaway features? It seems like a minor adjustment could have saved countless heroes from their untimely, cape-induced demises. Additionally, the film's portrayal of family dynamics is both endearing and utterly absurd. The Parr family is full of superpowered individuals, yet they struggle with mundane problems like finding a babysitter or dealing with teenage angst. While it's amusing to see superheroes grappling with everyday life, it's hard not to wonder how they've managed to keep their powers a secret for so long. Between Dash's superspeed and Violet's invisibility, it seems like a minor miracle that their true identities haven't been exposed. Lastly, let's address the film's climax, in which the Parr family teams up with their friend Frozone to save the city from the rampaging Omnidroid. The epic battle is undoubtedly thrilling, but it's also riddled with inconsistencies. For example, the Omnidroid is designed to be virtually indestructible and adaptive, yet it's ultimately defeated by its own weaponry. It's hard to believe that Syndrome, with all his technical prowess, wouldn't have foreseen this potential weakness and programmed the robot accordingly. And speaking of the Omnidroid, it's worth noting that it was specifically designed to take down superheroes. But when the citizens of Metroville find themselves in the path of the rogue robot, they seem to do a pretty good job of surviving the chaos without any superpowers. Perhaps Syndrome's idea of leveling the playing field isn't so far-fetched after all. Finally, we come to the film's resolution, in which the Parr family is reintegrated into society and superheroes are once again embraced by the public. While it's a heartwarming and satisfying conclusion, it's also incredibly convenient. Were the citizens of Metroville so easily swayed that a single display of heroics was enough to reverse years of animosity and mistrust? It's a testament to the power of the narrative, but it also requires a healthy suspension of disbelief. But wait, there's more! We can't overlook the film's iconic fashionista, Edna Mode, the superhero costume designer with a penchant for dramatic flair and a strong aversion to capes. It's only fitting that a movie about superheroes would feature a scene-stealing character who specializes in outfitting them. However, it's curious that Edna, who claims to design for gods, lives in such a relatively modest home. Perhaps her humble abode is a reflection of her belief that superheroes should blend in with ordinary folk. Now let's talk about the villainous syndrome. Born Buddy Pine, he's a former fanboy of Mr. Incredible turned supervillain after being rejected as a sidekick. Syndrome's motivation is intriguing, as he seeks to level the playing field by making everyone super, thus rendering superheroes obsolete. But let's be honest, his plan is a little convoluted. Syndrome dedicates years of his life to creating technology that could genuinely change the world, only to use it in a twisted scheme to enact personal vengeance. Talk about misguided priorities! It's also worth mentioning that the film explores themes of identity and self-acceptance. Dash, for example, must come to terms with his super speed, which initially causes him problems in school. However, the film seems to gloss over the ethical implications of allowing a superpowered individual to compete in school sports, where he would undoubtedly have an unfair advantage. Is it really a triumph for Dash to win a race when the outcome is so heavily skewed in his favor? And let's not forget about Violet, who struggles with her shyness and the desire to fit in with her peers. It's a touching and relatable subplot, but one has to wonder how her newfound confidence would hold up in the real world. Sure, she's mastered her powers of invisibility and force fields, but is that enough to ensure a smooth transition into the treacherous world of high school social dynamics? Only time will tell. How could we possibly continue without mentioning the hilarious and awkward moments where Bob attempts to navigate his new life as a stay-at-home dad? From dealing with baby Jack's newfound powers to trying to help Dash with his new math homework, these scenes provide a humorous glimpse into the challenges of parenthood, even for a superhero. But really, when did math become so complicated? It's almost as if the school curriculum was designed by a supervillain with a sinister plot to confuse parents and students alike. Speaking of Jack, let's talk about the adorable baby of the Parr family, who goes from being seemingly powerless to displaying an impressive array of abilities. Jack's unpredictable powers make for some of the funniest scenes in the film, but they also raise a few questions. For instance, how did the Parr family manage to keep Jack's powers a secret from their neighbors? And do they have a massive stash of baby clothes to replace the ones Jack inevitably incinerates, stretches, or phases through? While we're on the topic of secrets, we can't ignore the superhero relocation program, which essentially places superheroes in witness protection. One might wonder how such a program, which is presumably funded by the government, manages to keep the existence of superheroes a secret from the general public. Surely the paperwork alone would be a bureaucratic nightmare. Not to mention, how do they explain the destruction caused by superhero battles without outing the existence of these superpowered individuals? And let's not forget about the movie's climax, which features the family battling a giant, AI-controlled Omnidroid. Despite the exciting visuals and fast-paced action, one can't help but wonder about the extensive property damage and potential civilian casualties that result from such a battle. It's almost as if the filmmakers forgot to consider the real-world implications of a city-leveling fight between superheroes and a massive, rogue robot. But hey, who needs realism when you have a thrilling final showdown? Now, in conclusion, once and for all, The Incredibles is a delightful blend of humor, action, and heart, peppered with hilarious absurdities and logical inconsistencies that only add to its charm. So buckle up, grab your super suit, and revel in the wild ride that is the world of Pixar's most incredible family. Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.